One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12. Seven, nine, 12. Do, 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 do. Successfully. Okay, let's get back to this.
Bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
And Trump knows this. They say it's all bullshit, but here's the point, right? Under our system, the states play a very have a constitutional role to play in
It's the jump quest.
how you certify electors, how the vote is conducted and
It's a
counted,
jump
right, and
quest.
how electors are certified and a victor is declared, right? The executive branch in our system has zero role to play in that, and it's certainly the Department of Justice has zero role to play in that. What Trump was trying to do was abuse the power of the Department of Justice to interfere in the constitutional processes of other branches of government, other parts of the U.S. government.
Yeah. So
And this is a huge point, right? Because a lot of people you're talking about who are supposedly constitutional conservatives who are mired
are you
in
fucking
myths
kidding
about
me?
January 6th and the lies about it, right? Well,
Unbelievable.
listen, buddy, you
What
can't
just
be a
happened?
constitutional conservative if you're in favor of this, or you're going to make excuses for this, because this is the opposite of constitutional conservatism. This is trying to shred the Constitution, you know?
yeah, this goes back to what I just said about like understanding the civics. Is that when I heard that Raffensperger call initially, I'm thinking like, man, the fact that he was like looking for votes and he was like doing all this kind of weird, repeating these conspiracies, and that was kind of, that was a bad thing. And then after, because when I started getting steeped in the J6 stuff, now I'm starting to read like, what is the structure of the DOJ? How does, how are offices and departments created for the executive? I don't know. I had no idea, right? So I'm just reading the Constitution, reading where these things come from, and it's like, okay, now when I look back at the like the Raffensperger call, I don't even care that much about the 11,000 vote thing. Why is a guy running for office calling the Secretary of State to accuse them of voter stuff and asking for voter roll? Like, it's on its face, the phone call, even if he wasn't president, is completely inappropriate.
Did I land
the fact
in
that he
that
is president
shit?
makes it even
Right.
more inappropriate. Just that call is
the
insane
fuck?
just because it exists. And then also I don't know if this was in your guys' report or not. I think it was. Donald Trump even called one of the lower investigators.
Yeah,
Am I
it's
out
in
of
there.
time?
Yeah, it's an insane call. I'm so happy that, I don't know if it was Brad or Ryan who recorded the call that leaked when Donald Trump
Yeah.
the next day
What
said,
is
"Oh, they don't know
this?
anything about it," and then he leaked the whole thing. So glad that call was leaked.
What is
But
this?
my God,
But,
yeah.
but what you,
Oh, the
what you just
leaker
mentioned
file.
there, though, that's part of why this is so serious. Remember at the outset we talked about January 6th being the culmination of this, going from really before the election, but certainly from election day onward, right? Trump and his associates do this across the board, across all the swing states. They call executive
Come on.
officials, executive branch officials that have a constitutional role in certifying the results of an election, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I
They
got it.
call
Uh-huh.
lower level, executives, right?
weird.
State and local government officials trying to get anybody they can to obstruct Donald Trump's defeat, right? And this is again, this is an attack on the constitutional order of the first order, of magnitude. And this is why I say when I started putting together the report, working with others on it, right? One of the things I said was, before you even get to the violence, before you even get there, we have a very serious attack on our constitutional order. Before you even get to the organized riot, as I call it, on January 6th, before you even get there, this is very serious, because for the first time in our history, we have a president trying to misuse and abuse the power of including the bully pulpit of the presidency, to interfere with all these other constitutional duties that officials around the country have to perform.
Yeah, and then the collective amnesia, but accidentally or induced to the electorate and intentionally done by the media figures, is so frustrating, because you ask people about, like, say that the event itself, January 6th, and you're like, well, like, I'll talk to people, and there's that one stupid fucking quote from Trump. "I know you'll be marching peacefully," and they always say that, like, well, he told them to march peacefully. This came at like 20 minutes in the speech. It was an hour speech of unhinged so many unhinged things. But I'm like, okay, he tweeted out that it was going to be a historic event, right? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess, okay. And it was on January 6th, right? Yeah, okay. What were they protesting? Well, they just were upset. It's like, okay, he sent them all down, he riled them all up. Then there was, a riot. Was that like an accident? And they're like, well, yeah, it was just a coincidence. Yeah, I don't think he didn't want it. So it was just a coincidence that they all showed up on the day of the certification. They marched down. They fought like hell. They thought the election was stolen. They delayed the certification. That was all a coincidence. And the collective amnesia over all of it. Or I'll ask people questions. Like one that I like a lot is when Donald Trump said over and over again that Mike Pence needs to do the right thing. What the fuck was he talking about? What did he mean by that? Do the right thing. What was the right thing? And people are like, well, I don't know. I have no idea. It's like, yeah.
All right. Well, couple things on this. Let's take this one thing at a time. So, peacefully and patriotically, I wrote a piece at Just Security on this. You can Google it, right? Taking apart this defense. So one of the things that the investigative team on the committee found, January 6th committee found, was drafts of Trump's speech and how it was crafted for January 6th. And it's true, he does say at one point, very briefly, peacefully and patriotically, right? But that's the only time he says the word peacefully, right? The words don't come from him, they come from his speechwriters, right? And he invokes the word fight at least 20 other occasions in the speech, and the
World of the
etymology of the
Dead?
speech shows that is him. That is his words. That is what he's doing, including
World of the
what is,
Dead.
I think, inarguably the most incendiary line ever spoken by a sitting U.S. president in our domestic politics, which is, you got to fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, we're not going to have a country anymore. Right? So you're going to tell me that people, the peacefully line somehow trumps the 20 times that he used the word fight in one context or another, including that incendiary line, which is the most incendiary line you can imagine. And by the way, the stuff focused on Pence, sending them down to the Capitol, as Barr himself has said, right, was all about intimidating Pence. It was about intimidating his own vice president. That's why he's doing it. There's no reason to march to the Capitol, who, at that point, there's only one card left to play. That's the Pence card, as they called it, right? Which is to pressure Pence to help him overturn the election results. That's the whole point of sending the mob down there, is to intimidate Pence in Congress
Right. Well,
into
let's,
trying to obstruct, at a minimum, obstruct certification. Again,
let's
whether
look
he
at
knows there's going to be any violence or not, or whether he's directly involved in or blessing any violence or not, the point is he wants this mob to go down to the Capitol to obstruct the certification of the proceeding. They want him to intimidate his own vice president into not doing his constitutional duty on January 6th, which is, and by the way, anybody who tells you they don't know what Pence should have done on January 6th, there's only two sources for the vice president's power. They're both discussed in the report, right? One is the 12th Amendment. There's a single line. Doesn't say anything about any of the stuff that Trump was trying to have the vice president do. And the other one was the Electoral Count Act of 1887 at the time, in which case Trump and his advisors were trying to get Pence to violate it.
Yeah.
Knowingly. So
Yeah.
there's no constitutional or historical or legal precedent or basis for anything they're trying to get Pence to do. And the mob gets sent down to Capitol purely to try and get him to do something other than his constitutional duty.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing too. Like, what were they protesting there? And like, people won't answer that question. What were they on January 6th during the certification of the vote? Right? I thought, because again, they want to live in every world. I thought that the extra slates were just there in case there was voter fraud discovered. Right? Well, there was none. They didn't win that. Right? And they're like, we just need 10 more days. We just want 10 more days to investigate. Really? Yeah, 10 more days is gonna. Yeah, it's very frustrating.
By the way, 10 more days would have violated the Electoral Count Act at the time, which had governed that proceeding for 130 years. So again, every iteration of what they claimed they wanted, right? Every single one of them would violate either the Constitution or statutory law or a combination thereof.
Yeah.
So they had no legal basis for any of it,
Which is also, it's really frustrating too, that you have to dive a bit into like I don't even want to say it's legalese, 'cause it's not super complicated, but it's hard to understand. I have to explain to people, when they say constitutional, that's code for breaking the law. That's what they mean when they say that. Anytime they mention the 12th Amendment, what they're really saying is we have to break the ECA, the law, because of an interpretation that we have of the Constitution that, as was said by, is it Anthony Short? Or Gregory Short? That Short and... Mark Short, yeah, Mark Short.
Greg Jacobs.
It's Greg Jacobs and Mark Short, yeah. I think it might have been said by both of them. Yeah, that multiple times Eastman admitted they would lose 2-7, they'd lose 0-9, or that, like, I don't think the court would hear it. It's a major political question thing. They wouldn't hear it, right? They knew that this was never going to work. So, but you have to tell people that, like, no, constitutional doesn't mean that, like, they were following law. Constitutional means they wanted to break the law. That's what they were saying.
It's Orwellian. It's actually the opposite of constitutional. They want to break the Constitution. They want to subsume. They want the vice president to assume unconstitutional powers. I mean, there's a single line in the 12th Amendment. It's in the report. You can look it up online, right? You have to be completely delusional to think that single line in the 12th Amendment justifies anything they were trying to get Pence to do, because it doesn't. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about any of that. So, it's frightening though that they were able to invent this whole cockamamie scheme based on one line of text in the Constitution, which, by the way, Eastman and others had admitted previously did not justify.
I saw a really good breakdown. Oh, because you guys included that as well. The email where Eastman breaks down is like, obviously the vice president doesn't have the power to do this. It would probably fail on these levels, and he knew that before going in.
And then but again, it goes back to the problems here, right? Of wanting to believe something, regardless of what the evidence is. Even somebody like this, who's supposedly a constitutional lawyer, can completely invert what he himself knows about all this to justify his beliefs.
Yeah. So here's a question that I have to speak to states of mind. Some people involved, I would argue, are traitors. But these people all have impressive backgrounds. Rudy Giuliani, the RICO guy, New York prosecutor, right? Sidney Powell.
I was the chief counterterrorism advisor for the 2008 presidential campaign.
Do what?
I was the chief counterterrorism advisor for Rudy Giuliani for the 2008 presidential campaign.
Okay, yeah. I mean, America's...
So I saw him go from supposedly America's mayor to this drooling imbecile, repeating all sorts of nonsense on behalf of Trump. Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable fall from grace.
Sidney Powell, one of the youngest women, I think, federal prosecutors in U.S. history. Eastman was a constitutional lawyer, professor at Chapman. These people have these backgrounds, and all the people that got drafted into Trump's team were just insane. But then on the flip side, and this is something that I'm trying to stress so much to people that I talk to, the J6 plot, all of that, it wasn't stopped by progressives. It wasn't stopped by Biden or Kamala or Obama or the left or the Clintons or whatever. It was a whole bunch of people that Barr is supposed to be the number one executive power and Trump sycophant. And he stood up to it. And Pence heroically stood up to it. And, Hirschman and all of these White House staff and lawyers and everything, all these guys stood up to it. Why do you think that people like Barr didn't just go along with it? Like, what do you think was the major stopping point for a lot of these guys?
I'm not a mind reader. I don't know. I mean, Barr was certainly, very willing to do Trump's bidding up until then.
Yeah.
Which is what makes him unwilling to do it even more interesting and telling and credible. I mean, I have other criticisms of Barr. There are plenty of other ways you can criticize Barr, but he clearly stood up in that moment to what the nonsense Trump was trying to do. And he says, he even says on the record with the committee, he says, I don't think that, any administration should try and stay in power based on lies about the election, So he knows he knows that even though he's backpedaled and he says he's going to vote for Trump and all this other stuff, he knows how dangerous this all is, right? I mean, he has to, he lived it. I mean, he resigned in
like
large
2 weeks before the election. Yeah.
14th. Yeah. He issues his letter on just, and in December 14th was, 2020. So the bottom line is, but there's an important point here too, to zoom out of all this. So, the backbone of the narrative. I mean, there are some Democrats involved. There are some local election workers involved who are not Republicans, like Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss in Georgia, who are smeared with these racist smears. In State Farm Arena. There's people like that, obviously, who are their lives are upended by Trump and his bullying, right? But the backbone of this are Republican officials from the federal government all the way down to the local governments who say no. They stand up to Trump in his attempt to overturn the election, right? But here's the thing: what does Trump do? He systematically attacks, using the bully pope of the presidency, each and every one of them, including his own vice president, right? Folks, that's the definition of autocracy. He's putting the auto in autocracy, right? Because it is, at the end of the day, only about one, right? His own vice president throws him under the bus. His own attorney general throws him under the bus. You can go through all these different other Republicans all the way down. People who worked to try and get him elected and reelected, people who were on his side through Election Day 2020, people who tried to get him elected and wanted him to stay in office and disappointed election. He throws them all under the bus and attacks them. He uses the bully pulpit to turn his mob against them, and that's really dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Yeah, he does. It's a thing that there are a million things to point out, but it's just something that you notice as a trend through all of his speeches up through even January 6th, is when people play ball with him, he calls them out and he says, like, this guy is such a great congressman. We support, there are the 11 senators, and then I think Jim Jordan or whatever, the worst person in the history of the House. These people that he's always giving credit to, he's always calling out. And when people don't play ball, he's always saying this, I think for Brian Kemp, he called him a schmuck on the phone. These guys that we get elected and they're not loyal to us and they don't help. And it's like, Jesus, like, how is it not so transparent what's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, the evidence part of the big part of the January 6th case, including the federal case brought by special counsel, you can see that there's this whole pattern of behavior. Again, reposting information that really paints targets on these officials' backs all the way across all the swing states, and then, of course, leading up to Vice President Pence himself repeatedly, I mean, that's also another rebuttal to Trump's behavior during the attack, or immediately preceding the attack and then during the attack. The first actual tweet that he puts out is at 2:24, where he attacks Vice President Pence right in the middle of the attack. Doesn't have the courage to do what was necessary, right? The stuff that comes after that, he does say stuff about, stay peaceful, that kind of thing after that, right? But it's not him, right? It's his advisors and his daughter and everybody else putting words in his mouth and trying him. Now he does tweet out some of the stuff, but the point is, like, the first blush at it, the first attack at it from him, the first instance of him in his own words is always the most aggressive, the most, zealous, the most, trying to rile people up.
And I think I'd have to go back and check the times, but I think that isn't that "Stay Peaceful" tweet that might come like minutes after I think Ashley Babbitt was already shot.
I'd have to look on the timing on that, but I mean, basically, people were trying desperately to, and by the way, he keeps holding Ashley Babbitt up as a martyr for the cause, and it is tragic that she was shot and killed on January 6th. It's awful, right? But she was shot climbing through a window, just feet away from members of Congress and others, right? When trying to lead, at the forefront of this mob that's trying to go through. It's awful that she was shot and killed. It's tragic. It's also tragic that she believed all this QAnon nonsense that Trump endorsed. You know, I mean, Trump as president is given multiple opportunities to knock down the QAnon conspiracy theory, right? And he doesn't. He does the opposite. He actually validates the core beliefs of QAnon. He's asked at one point right from the podium. They say, what do you think about these people who think you're trying to head off this satanic cult of pedophiles of Democrats and others like that? And he says, well, would it be such a bad thing if that's what I was doing? I mean, it's like, this is crazy stuff, but here's the thing, right, that I want to get across to anybody who's watching this, right? Think about how dangerous it is for a president of the United States to validate the craziest shit you see online, right? Because that's what this guy does. And he does it over and over again, And now this isn't just some guy out there That Savannah Guthrie said during an interview with him, this isn't your uncle, right? This isn't your crazy uncle doing this. This is the president of the United States saying this nonsense that's percolating online that's dangerous. That stuff's legitimate, you know? And so that's a big part of the problem, I would say.
Yeah, listening to Short talk about how I think he was getting emails, or actually, wait, it might have been Rosen too, getting emails about like, I need you to like look into this, and it's like the Italian guy talking about the satellites flipping votes, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
It's dumb, right? I mean, it's really dumb stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really stupid. You know, man, that's the other thing people aren't supposed to say, but I'll say it. You know, this is really stupid stuff.
It is stupid, yes.
Stupid. It's stupid, right? People won't say that, but you have to say that, right? Because it is dumb, right? This is an insult to the intelligence of anybody who has any kind of intellect. You know, this is really, really dumb stuff. You know, so
Yeah, even like all the Ruby Freeman and Shamos stuff, like they did all of this rigging, all this conspiratorial stuff. Why the fuck did they give you the tapes then? Because another thing that I wish people would realize sometimes is when they allege stuff, it happens a lot with conspiracies, right? Sometimes people allege what would be the largest conspiracy in the history of the country, right? The idea that somebody is, with top-down coordination, rigging elections across several, that would probably be one of the largest conspiracies and most impactful, maybe in all of world history, in all of human history, and the evidence is non-existent, right? You're alleging something so grand, right? If this was the case, right, if the Clintons are killing people like Seth Rich and protecting Jeffrey Epstein and all this, why are they giving you the fucking tapes? Why would the State Farm Arena tapes be visible? You don't think they would take care of the fucking security cameras in the corner of the room, right?
Right.
Or people,
yeah. But there's an old logical principle that's very well known. That's been known for thousands of years. That you're extrapolating on there, which is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right?
Oh, I've changed that now. I just say extraordinary claims require at least any evidence at all. Give me one thing.
I was going to follow up with saying these extraordinary claims require just a scintilla of evidence.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's the point, right? They're building these monumental sandcastles on not even a grain of sand, you know, and that's a real big problem, you know, because that's why it doesn't even qualify as conspiracy theories, right? This is just rabid conspiracism, you know.
Yeah, because they can just lie with impunity over anything and just keep repeating it over and over and over, and people just like believe it, even though, like I said, a lot of these were debunked like the day of. Like the Dominion stuff was. That's another thing I'll do now when I'm on stage. Like, oh, you think Dominion was rigged? Go ahead and say that, right? Because the content creators know that they got sued, and they know that they won't say it. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, or Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss won 148 million, I think, from Giuliani, and that was another thing Owen Schreier said. He's like, yeah, the ballots were ran 3 times in Georgia. I was like, oh, who ran those? Will you say who ran it? He's like, well, it wasn't Ruby or Shay, it was somebody else. Like, oh, okay, we're changing the names now.
I mean, yeah. Again, I don't even know if patience is the right word, because I could, like somebody like that, I don't think I could, you know, debate in good faith. I mean, I think that type of stuff is just so dishonest.
Yeah.
And so.
But half the electorate, like. My guess would be over 80% of Republicans probably believe the State Farm video. I'm sure there are liberals that even think the State Farm video maybe is real or hard to explain.
I mean, all the data, you know, shows that Republicans are much more willing to believe this stuff than liberals or Democrats for sure at this point. And again, I think that's because Trump, who was president of the United States, and his minions said it was legit, said it was true, right? I mean, this is the power of the presidency. You know, it's not coming from your crazy uncle. It's coming from a guy who was president of the United States is telling you that all this stuff is going on. You know, that's why it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous. That's why it's so dangerous if 2 weeks from today, or shortly thereafter, he wins the election, in my view, because then this broken reality that he and his followers live in gets enshrined as truth, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things when people say, like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if Trump is elected? And to some extent, it's like a referendum on what conduct you're allowed to get away with. Like, why would you ever waste your time being truthful or about anything, right, if this is the reward for it? So you said that you were involved in the drafting of the report, but none of the live, like, presentation in Congress, right?
No, I didn't say that. No.
Oh, okay. Was there?
I was involved in. You were asking about like the where
the
the
deposition.
Video came.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of that stuff. I didn't have any role in producing stuff online as the committee was like shutting down and stuff. I didn't have any role in that. But in terms of the hearings, I absolutely had a role in the hearings. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Were you happy with how the like the video the presentation turned out compared to like the written report?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of the work the committee did. There's obviously a lot of people involved. I mean, obviously, I'm just one person, so there's a lot of people involved. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. I mean, there's definitely, you know, things that always could be better or go better. I mean, you know, I'm a nerd, so I go back and read my own stuff and kind of think it could be better, you know, at times. So, but Yeah, no, I mean, I think the hearings conveyed what they needed to convey. You
Hmm.
know, it's a very, again, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of evidence, and trying to boil that down and synthesize it and get people to pay attention, understand. But to me, I looked at it as, if you're a constitutional conservative out there, how can you possibly think that any of this is kosher, right? How can you possibly think that anything you're seeing here is legitimate? Because none of it is,
Yeah.
Um, so.
What do you think caused, or why do you think it was so hard for Americans to be persuaded by this? Or have you ever in your personal life seen a conservative and argued any of these points and moved them on anything? Like, yeah, what is like the most convincing or compelling thing when you're talking to people for this stuff that don't agree with it coming in? Or is there any answer to it?
I don't have a good answer. I mean, you mentioned your family members earlier. I have family members too. I won't,
Hmm.
identify, but I have family members, friends, longtime colleagues who, people who believe all sorts of bullshit, and they're not stupid people, and yet they believe stuff that's really dumb,
Hmm.
and it's very hard to accept that and figure out a way around it. I mean, you could sit down and show them something, and what I would say is, even if they concede that point, they'll just move on to the next lie, the next thing to justify the original belief, right?
Hmm.
And it just shows how fragile the human mind really is, and that the human mind is really, um, if a person wants to believe something, he or she will believe it. And this is also what's so dangerous about bad leadership, though, right? Because humans do need decent leaders, people who are willing to guide them and put their passions into something that's productive and is a better outcome for all of us, right?
Hmm.
And when you have somebody who abuses their authority and their power to lead them down these dark paths and these dark roads, this is the outcome, right? And that's why you have people who believe stuff like they do today about the 2020 election.
What do you think for the current information environment that we exist in? Do you have any ideas personally about like what you would like to see changed or any kind of like path forward? Because it seems like it's unsustainable right now, or at least not with America being a country for much longer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to claim to have the answers. I mean, a mutual friend of mine opened me up to what you're doing, and to what some other people are doing in terms of these debates or anything. I think that's great. You have more patience than I do in terms of the people you debate, because I definitely would have a hard time not insulting them, from how stupid the stuff is you hear and you see.
Hmm.
I don't know what the path forward is. I mean, I do think there's, an educational component. I do think people have to kind of be better educated and understand these things. I think that there needs to be a better, sort of consensus building for people who are opposed to this type of stuff.
Hmm.
Better coalition building. People need to say, okay, we can disagree on X, Y, and Z, but this is sort of a core thing here, right? This is the core of our democracy and how it's going to function, and we need to expand that coalition as broad as possible to hold the line against people who really are so rabid in their beliefs that they would undermine it.
Hmm. I think that's one of the scariest things to me is there are, it feels like there are core American things right now that we're not all aligning on in like very troubling ways. Like, again, I don't know your positions on it, but I would argue that a lot of our involvement in the Middle East, especially when it came to Iraq, I'm sure you could justify some initial invasions or attacks like in Afghanistan or you getting Osama bin Laden, but after 9/11, at the very least, it was a like, hold on, okay, let's stop fighting for a second. Whoever the fuck George Bush tells us to go after, we will attack any country on the planet. We are united as fuck. We just got hit. This is bullshit, right? I genuinely feel like today, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like today, if we were attacked by somebody, I don't even know if the United States would be united in its response.
Yeah,
I don't
I've
know.
had that same thought that many times. Yep.
What in your interpretation of things, what do you think is the thing that's changed the most, I guess, over the past like 20 or 30 years?
Social media in the online world, because now what happens is that hurting is a human thing. It's a human phenomenon, just like it is for other animals. But it often happens either it can happen with a mob, like you saw on January 6th, or it can happen in terms of hurting of opinion. And I was originally an economist, and much of our sister company was wiped out on 9/11, and so my mind started to turn from these economic projects that I was working on, research projects, to counterterrorism. That's how I originally got involved. And like I said, eventually I ended up being, counterterrorism advisor to Mayor Giuliani for his 2008 campaign, and running in those types of circles and advising people on this, and built a career in the counterterrorism world. And you think about like the 9/11 conspiracy theories, 9/11 trutherism. I mean, I remember back then. I mean, I'm 48 years old. I remember, as a young man back in 2001 and the years after that, 9/11 trutherism was very much marginalized. That people, it didn't really spread in a way that was sort of dangerous for our political body. It didn't really captivate as many people as it could.
Hmm.
And I look at the trajectory of somebody like Alex Jones, who made, one of the big bumps in his career was 9/11 trutherism, right? He did get a bump on that online, but he was still marginalized and was still kept to sort of his corner, right? And now today, you flash forward, and Alex Jones is being celebrated across the MAGA right as some sort of brave truth teller. That to me, that transformation from somebody and a belief system that should have been marginalized and should remain marginalized to something that could and by the way, that's entirely tied into January 6th and riling up the crowd before January 6th, on January 6th, and all the lies involved there. That to me is really disheartening and is really dangerous. And I don't know totally how to combat it. I don't know I don't know that it can be put back in its box entirely.
Yeah.
I know that if Trump is reelected, I think then the freaks are going to fly their flags forevermore. That type of stuff is going to basically be endorsed evermore. And you said, you don't know what the incentive is to be honest or truthful or to do it the right way. That to me as a nerd, it's really that hurts, right? Because that's I've thought that many times. Like, what am I bothering to spend all this time trying to get the quote precisely correct or do this or that when you can have this type of idiotic nonsense gain traction?
Yeah,
So,
I had a guy that I was debating who was I think he worked on. I don't think it was Infowars. I think it was part of Tim Pool's crowd or whatever. And he was denying. There is no evidence that the Proud Boys were even involved. And there's no evidence. And if they were involved, they didn't. It's like, okay, let's read through the entire Enrique Tarrio indictment. Let's just read through the indictment, and you tell me if this seems bad or not, right? And we're going through. We're like a third of the way through. It's like, okay, they're just talking. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, okay, well, they want to go to the event. That's fine. And then by the time we hit the end, he's like, I'm not joking when I say this, okay? This isn't a joke. This is a real story. This YouTube video is on my channel. He's like, I fooled you. And I was like, what do you mean you fooled me? And he's like, Enrique Tarrio is a federal informant, and this whole thing is fake. And I'm like, well, fuck me, I guess. Okay, so we just wasted an hour reading this because you realize it's indefensible, and now it's he was a Fed the entire time. Holy Christ. Yeah, and it's like, Jesus, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's why he was convicted of seditious conspiracy and other felonies and sentenced to 22 years in prison, right? I mean, so if he was just a federal informant, you don't think he would have gotten off with, what he did and what he was saying.
Because that's why Ray Epps got off, remember? Ray Epps wasn't charged initially because he was a federal informant, but then he was
charged
to cover it up. And and it's like...
Yeah, I mean, it's all. I mean, this is the bottom line for me. I know I keep saying this, and I keep repeating it, but I can't help it, right? Because I feel like I'm in this venue. I can kind of be a little more unleashed, right? This is all stupid stuff.
Yeah,
really, really dumb, And this is what happens when you have a herd of stupid people believe something, and you can't convince them otherwise, right? So I don't know how you combat that, Again, Rudy Giuliani, who who I worked for briefly on this campaign, he went from being America's supposed mayor in the response to 9/11 to you can find clips of him entertaining 9/11 trutherism now online.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you square that one? I mean,
yeah, it's insane. And even you brought up the Steve Bannon transformation, and I do think that's one of the scarier things for being part of I'm sorry, not Bannon, Alex Jones. One of the scarier transformations to me even has been, I don't know how much you keep up with him, is Tucker Carlson. Who?
Yeah, no, I've got a whole. I wrote a piece about Tucker Carlson on January 6th. I wrote it for Politico about what he was doing with his audience with the footage he was getting for January 6th, and just debunking it. I mean, I was one of the ones who, when it came to the January 6th surveillance footage, I mean, I always said put it all out there. I watched a lot of it. Put it all out there. I don't care. There's no deep dark secret hidden there. Put everything out. I mean, what does it matter? But he's somebody who manipulates his audience. He's a good example of a guy. I could take you through his documentary Patriot Purge, for example, where he's trying to there's literally a clip where he's talking about agent provocateurs or deep state provocateurs, something like that. He's trying to blame this on some mythical non-existent people, right? And literally on the screen are Proud Boys clearing away the security fences, right? You can see who the provocateurs are.
Yeah.
On the screen as he's trying to blame somebody else. If you just know that you're looking at William Pepe and a couple of his friends there, who are Proud Boys. If you knew who they were, you know exactly what actually was going on. And that type of thing is very, the people who watch him, who watch that as he goes through his fall from grace, and who want to believe that stuff, I don't know how you get through to them. I really don't, because they're just so rabid in their beliefs.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest things. I thought I was going to spend a lot of time trying to like find coverage, like who said favorable things about the J6 stuff as it was happening. And I tuned in and I watched the whole day's worth of InfoWars stuff, and it was so crazy. There are so many funny quotes. Well, I say funny in a very dark way, but it was like the guy, the host talking, is literally saying like, you can see these proud patriots walking down the street. This isn't Antifa. These are patriots. Like, we know that these are patriots. Ashley Babbitt gets shot and killed, and it's this is the first victim of the Second American Revolution.
Yeah.
And then the National Guard shows up, and about 20 minutes later, it's like, well, there was a lot of Antifa there. We're not actually sure. And it's like you watch the narrative. It's the 1984 thing. We're at war with whoever, and then it changes mid-speech, like in real time. And I'm like, wait, what? There's no way. Yeah. Can I?
Again,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying this type of thing, though, what you're describing there, a phenomenon. In the pre-social media, pre-online days where it was sort of limited, this type of phenomenon wouldn't be able to grow as fast as it does. There's always been conspiracism. There's always been crazy beliefs and irrationality, and always been nonsense, right? I mean, you can go through the history of America, right? You can point to all sorts of herding of crazy stuff. But the point is now, I think it mushrooms much faster than it ever has in the past, and it gets much more vehement,
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And then it's impossible to keep up with the fact checking and everything because there's so many new things every single day. It's another new thing.
Exactly.
Can I ask you a couple questions related to counterterrorism stuff?
Sure.
Cool. Do you have any final thoughts, anything on the J6 stuff before I hop over to this, or?
No, ask me anything you want. I don't care. I don't know if you have anybody typing in questions too or anything. It's fine. If you want to ask me whatever.
Okay. Yeah. I might grab some of them. I will say real quick, because a guy wanted me to debate the 9/11 stuff, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. There were always things about the official story where I was like, maybe I can kind of see, maybe, who knows. And there's a movie called The New Pearl Harbor. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't know if I've heard of that.
It's like a 6-hour 9/11 truther video. I'm sure you've heard of Loose Change, right? Or do you remember that?
Yes.
The original one, yeah. I will say, going through the New Pearl Harbor, that 6-hour video, and then reading like the NTSB report and everything, I have never been a more official believer, more of a bigger believer in the official story until after reading through all of the documentation and everything. Because there's stuff where, and I didn't even realize, like, sometimes I'll think a thing and I don't realize how dumb it is. Like, there are parts where, like, they're finding passports after the planes have crashed, and I'm thinking, like, Jesus, like, what the fuck is the chance of that? And, like, there's no way, right? And then I'm thinking, like, well, I don't know, what is the chance of that? I don't know how many fucking planes crash. I don't know what it looks like. And then you can find all these other examples of, like, well, planes crash and papers fly out. It's like, oh, okay, maybe this, it does happen or whatever, more common than I would have thought. Yeah, there's just so much of that. Running through that 9/11 video was just funny.
I built the whole career in the counterterrorism world. I mean, I did some interesting stuff. I mean, I got the CIA to release Bin Laden's files in 2017. I did Republican congressmen and others to do that. I did all sorts of analysis on those files. I did, we were famous. We kind of made our bones doing a lot of analysis of the war in Afghanistan. I mean, I'll tell you one of the things about my career that's a real weird thing, real weird dynamic for me. Everything we've just been talking about on January 6th comes from like this anti-establishment, sort of anti-authority, right-wing, anti-government perspective, right? And the thing is, for me, I've actually been critical of a lot of people in government and the elite for so many years, for so many reasons, including on the war in Afghanistan or the war in Iraq or this or that. I mean, I have my own unique set of criticisms. They're not necessarily what anybody else has, but I've been very critical of the powers that be over and over again. And yet I find this whole belief system to be so dangerous and so toxic, right? And so corrosive for our politics and our democracy, because it's not being used to make things better or get better leadership. It's doing the opposite,
Yeah, that's always my biggest criticism of misinformation about any particular thing, is that it causes people to, because we have to give, there are things that we genuinely miss that we don't get to address now. Like when it came to the FISA warrants and the FBI's investigation into Trump and everything, this idea of there being a top-down conspiracy across all departments, it's like, if you know anything about it, it's just no possible way. But it could be, and I think maybe I agree, I think it was Dunham that did the FBI thing, that the end line that basically there can exist a culture politically where people can feel a certain way, and it can lead to biases in departments where, we need to have like red teams on certain issues. I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I could totally see how this could happen. But you don't even get to have any of those conversations publicly, because instead it's like, how do we figure out who like the deep state alien lizard is, rather than how do we counter, what could develop as a natural bias, in departments. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that happen with the Trump Russia stuff, the investigation stuff that I don't agree with, and there's stuff I think is wrong.
Yeah.
But by the same time, the way I put it is the American right has basically built that into this force field around the Death Star, right? So now anytime they fire off a photon beam, whatever, destroying a planet with their lies, they just claim, well, Russia, you can't attack us, right? We were immune from any kind of retaliation, And by the way, I mean, the evidence is clear, including Republicans knew this at one point in time, that Russia did interfere in the 2016 election. They did orchestrate this hack and leak, Russian intelligence did, of DNC's emails. And
Roger Stone was communicating with, yeah.
Yeah, but even putting that aside, I mean, the point is that Russia did interfere on Trump's side. Doesn't mean he colluded necessarily or whatever. They try and focus on the word collusion, right? Well,
Yeah.
we have to use that word to have a whole damning body of facts about what actually happened in 2016. But the point is, to your point, you can't have a rational conversation about any of that because it's been so mythologized. You have to crack through, the Himalayan mountain layer of mythology to get to the actual core facts. So.
On the
9/11 or the 9/11 wars or whatever.
On the counterterrorism stuff, I've spent before the J6 stuff, I've spent a long time doing kind of like Israel-Palestine. I'll say specific to that, or kind of Middle East, because if you do history of Israel and their current issues, you tangentially kind of understand some of things going on in other countries around it. How do you feel about, I'll say like maybe the young American left or the online communities now, maybe this isn't your perception, but they kind of seem to glorify a little bit people like Sinwar, organizations like Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis or Iran. Do you see that as being a significant problem, or do you think it's a thing that happens as much as my perception of it is? I perceive it to be quite a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen that. I mean, you can criticize, for example, Israel's conduct of the war and the response to October 7th, and say that certain things they're doing are wrong, and they're killing too many people, and killing too many civilians, and they're doing this or that wrong. I mean, you should be able to have those criticisms for sure. You can criticize Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu, right? But again, this goes to the cognitive problems of humanity. This is sort of the same dynamic we saw during the Cold War, where you had certain people on the left who would not just be critical of the Vietnam War, which is fine. I'm critical of the Vietnam War. It was disastrous, just as the Iraq War was, although more so even than the Iraq War. But that's different between doing that and then openly sympathizing with the North Vietnamese or China or something like that, right? Which is you do see this dynamic where people sort of are drawn into being sympathetic for like Sinwar, like you said, or Hamas or Hezbollah, and these are violent, vile organizations. Before you even get into the terrorist label, which is entirely accurate, right? Just get into their ideological beliefs. What they actually believe is totally inconsistent with anybody progressive left and what they believe should be going on in America. The way they think that society should be structured and organized, and who should have rights and who should not have rights, right, is completely inconsistent with what a progressive left person should believe in the U.S. Or does believe in the U.S. And so I always marvel at that same type of contradiction you see with like constitutional conservatives when it comes to Trump and Trumpism and January 6th, where you have this guy and his movement are clearly trying to shred the Constitution, and yet they, on behalf of their fealty for the Constitution, they say they need Trump, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's cognitive dissonance. It's the same type of thing you can see here. There's a cognitive dissonance between you supposedly believe in these progressive ideals, and yet you're willing to sympathize with people who are at least part of them. I'm not saying all of them, just part of them. There's an young audience online that has that sort of proclivity, and it is disheartening and problematic.
When you think of counterterrorism, when we think of terrorism, usually we think of like kinetic, attacks or some type of physical infiltration. Do you spend any time kind of like studying or researching how the information landscape is so at risk or under attack, especially by, I guess, like Qatar or Iran or Russia, especially? Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on that. So there was, one of the things from doing all the work, I did a lot of work on Afghanistan. And one of the things that I came to really study very closely were the Haqqanis, the Haqqani network, the Haqqani family. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're big wigs within the Taliban.
Okay.
And not only the bigwigs within the Taliban, but the Haqqanis really incubated Al Qaeda in South Asia, in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Without the Haqqanis, arguably you don't get Al Qaeda. Okay. For a lot of reasons. And by the way, if you want to talk about questioning the official narrative of things, 9/11 Commission Report, you can download the PDF and look for it. You won't find a single mention of Jalaluddin Haqqani, who was the first benefactor for Osama bin Laden. And if you want to get into conspiracy reasons why, right, it may be because he worked with the CIA, and so there are some times where you can criticize government agencies and there's maybe something to it, but in any event, so I've studied the Haqqanis very carefully, and we talk about disinformation, the information landscape. New York Times ran an op-ed that was ostensibly authored by Surajuddin Haqqani, the titular head of the Haqqani network. This guy was very, very important and powerful. And it was a complete snow job. It was a complete whitewash. It was obviously disinformation, right? And they ran it uncritically as if, it was legitimate. And it was obvious somebody wrote it for him. And it was obvious he had somebody, ghostwrite for him and appeal to sort of a left-wing audience in the U.S. and try and appeal to those sensibilities in a way. And it was all nonsense, And so it's very easy in this information environment for somebody like that. By the way, a guy who was a U.S. designated terrorist, a guy who trained and dispatched suicide bombers, a guy who sheltered senior Al-Qaeda members, a guy who's mentioned in Osama bin Laden's files as one of Osama bin Laden's guys, right, in the region, and that they're relying on and working with, okay? That guy gets an op-ed in the New York Times that is a complete snow job, So, yeah, I mean, I dealt with this a long time. You have all sorts of ability of actors to influence information and beliefs inside our democracy, and it's scary. It's scary stuff,
I think that in the past, having those types of hits done required more ability to infiltrate or more sophistication to infiltrate. Not to say that the attacks that exist today on our landscape aren't sophisticated, but it's very frustrating to see how effective and easy it is with, I don't know, do you have feelings about Elon Musk's possession of X and the amount of stuff that flies over that network? It just seems like an actual dream of a landscape to just proliferate bad information to the minds of Americans.
He's turned it into an InfoWars style channel. I mean, I talk about the influence of Alex Jones. I mean, Elon Musk is the wealthiest guy on the planet, right? And one of the first things he did was he let Alex Jones back on X, which was formerly Twitter, and then one of the first things he did after that was have a Twitter space with him, X space with him, right? Where he actually, think about that, the wealthiest guy in the world, right, decides to take the time to join a social media space and converse with and whitewash Alex Jones's career, which is what he did during that performance. I mean, that's scary stuff, And X is, I've always been, I think I first posted on X in April 2014 when it was Twitter. I was always skeptical of it as a platform. I've always had a lot of trepidation about social media. I somebody who studied the rise of ISIS very carefully, I know for a fact that social media played a big role in that. So I've seen a lot of the harm that social media does in particular, but it's gotten worse over time, and it's sort of at its peak of horribleness now.
Yeah. I guess broadly speaking, I feel like one of the things that is hurting the most is the factual worlds that we inhabit are becoming more and more distant from each other, and I feel like I know that people have always complained, like, oh, it's the worst it's ever been, and that's just a thing growing up. Like, everybody says that always. But I feel like we're truly reaching points where I think we've already passed the threshold where we're starting to see real-world impacts. Like, maybe somebody believes before 9/11 was a conspiracy. Okay, I mean, it's bad. You shouldn't believe it. Maybe there's some increase in anti-Semitism online or whatever. But, at the end of the day, it's not, playing out in a huge way, right? But now you have people who are, rejecting, help from FEMA, right? Because they think that they're also going to repo their house. You've got, bills in Congress that are stalling or dying relating to supporting Ukraine because people think that, Azov and bioweapons and everything, the support for Israel and whatever other countries, whatever, regardless of the position that you're on any of these things, it feels like we're truly reaching a point to where other people on the planet are having a significant influence over our internal political conversations. And in my mind, the party that was the most equipped to deal with that, I think that progressives suck because they could deal with racism, but they would never call out brown people or black people for being racist, only white people. While conservatives were our conspiracy bunch. And if a foreign country was trying to mess with us, you better believe the conservative conspiracy with her. But like you said earlier about the Russiagate, if you talk to a conservative today and you say like, do you think Russia tries to meddle with our elections? The answer is no more than America tries to meddle with anyone else, right?
Right,
And it's like, well,
right.
fuck, we're like defenseless.
Right. Well, that's that moral equivalency there. That's what you're talking about there. Between us and Russia and the Kremlin. I mean, it's, I mean, I don't have a hopeful message. I always feel like Debbie Downer talking about this stuff because I don't know what the path forward is. I mean, you said people in the past always said, well, things were the worst in the past. In my time and this and that. That's true, but for me, throughout my adult professional life, I've seen issues I care about and I've studied very closely. I've seen opinion hurt itself in a crazy, dangerous way and then go right off the cliff. Like 9/11 trutherism, like January 6th stuff, like just fundamental belief in our democracy. I mean, you have a whole political party that's supposed to be founded in constitutional conservatism, the party of Lincoln, and they've got some warped now views on all this, that are actually antithetical to constitutional conservatism. When you see that kind of inversion, right, that kind of moral and intellectual inversion, I don't know how you come back from it. I just don't, and I see it everywhere. So it's very problematic.
Yeah. Did you have any strong thoughts on did you see the Tenet Media story that came out that there was a...
I saw it. Yeah. I mean, that's evidence of your point, I mean, how easy it is, right? It's not, I mean, but again, like, I looked at that. First thing I thought was, what was the pay that like Tim Pool was getting, like
$5 million over a year, 400,000.
I mean, holy shit. I mean, like that makes me, question my whole professional career, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not making that, and I've never made anywhere close to that. And I'm toiling away trying to assemble, carefully assemble the facts the best I can. And then this guy who just pontificates with a bunch of nonsense is getting paid big bucks. But then it makes sense where it's coming from, right? It's coming from a foreign adversary who wants to stir things up.
Yeah.
So
it's very frustrating that not to say that there aren't problems in government or problems in media, but you'll have a guy talking about how like the government and all these actors are corrupt and they're trying to kill the American public and the media are all corrupt, and they'll be talking about some staff or some report that are written by guys that are making 50, 60,000 a year, or they'll be pointing at people working at not the big host, but like people who are like reporters or whatever working at Fox who are making maybe 60, 70, 80,000 a year. Meanwhile, this person is making 7 figures easy annually, talking about like these guys are corrupt and they're bribed and they're whatever, and it's like, wait, hold on, really? Like, and you're getting paid to say all this, right? I remember Tim Pool said something. He was responding to some criticism, like people say I'm audience captured. That's impossible. We're fully funded on donations from people that watch our show. And I'm like, what do you? That is audience. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's all stupid stuff, right? I mean, some of that content, it's pretty dumb. But it's But when you look at all that stuff, that's the hypocrisy of it all. You hit on something here. MAGA now has, and the American right has its own alternative ecosystem of media. Okay, they have their own, the #1 cable news channel, right? They have all these other news channels, right? There's this whole game they play where they talk about the media, right? And they point their fingers at the media and they talk about how the media is this, the media is that, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you are the media. First of all, you have your own media, right? And if you calculated your batting average in terms of getting things right versus wrong, it's going to be far lower than a lot of the media organizations you're criticizing.
Yeah. Right? I've argued with people who they'll talk about like the media censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. It's like, excuse me, it was censored on Twitter, which is alternative media, and it was published by the New York Post, which is arguably mainstream media. Like, what do you mean? You've got it completely backwards here.
No, I have Twitter censored it for 24
hours. Yeah.
And you could read it on Google, as I did, because once it was censored by Twitter's decision to censor for 24 hours caused a spike in Google searches for it. Probably got it more traction than you could have gotten otherwise, right? Yeah. I read it because it was censored. I went to Google and I searched for it, found it on the Post website, and read it. So it wasn't actually censored. It just wasn't being able to spread on Twitter at that point in time. And again, it was a 24-hour decision. It was the wrong decision. I disagree with the decision, but they revoked that decision within 24 hours. But they built the whole. And here's how they work though. They built an entire a mountain of grievance on top of that, right? To the point where you can see, Elise Stefanik there or others, or I'm sorry, you can see congressmen and congresswomen in on the Hill arguing that somehow Twitter's decision to censor this story for 24 hours on its platform cost Donald Trump the election, right? J.D. Vance made this argument just the other day. that social media, censoring this Hunter Biden laptop story, there's credible research that swung millions of votes, is what he said. Shit, right? I mean, that's total nonsense, and yet that's what they've done now. Meanwhile, their own media, right? Their media is spreading nonsense on a regular basis, is spouting nonsense constantly.
Like in deposition court, like that Fox News settlement was the largest defamation settlement in all of defamation history of the United States. Giuliani said that he lied. It was his first right to lie. Sidney Powell paid restitution to Georgia. Like it's all, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what mainstream media organization had to pay $800 million to a technology company because it couldn't restrain its own lies?
Yeah.
Right. It couldn't stop defaming it. Right. I mean, that's the point here on all this is that they've built this entire industry of nonsense, and they build their grievances on top of the nonsense.
Yeah, and then they cite it. Like they'll say they'll invent election conspiracies, and then you debunk the election conspiracies, and they'll say, okay, but like regardless of if you think it's true or not, look at how many people are upset about it. Something clearly happened, and it's like, yeah, what happened is the bullshit that you told them. What do you mean?
Right.
Yeah,
you made them upset.
Yeah, no shit, they're mad. You fucking lied to them for 5 years about it. Yeah. And
I mean, I had a friend do that with Pennsylvania, right? So Pennsylvania is very bad at counting the mail-in votes before election day because the Republican-controlled state legislature passed laws is basically saying you can't do that. You got to wait until afterwards to count them all. So that creates a delay, and that delay then is used as sort of a window to spread disinformation and lies and myths about the election.
God damn.
And a friend of mine was like, well, why doesn't Pennsylvania just count the votes? I'm like, because the Republican state legislature decided they can't just count the votes beforehand. And it just didn't matter, right? Like they just move on to the next
talking point. Yeah. I asked this question, like Donald Trump complained about mail-in ballots a year beforehand. He said they were going to be rigged. What is one suggestion that Donald Trump made to make them more secure? There's nothing. It was just about getting rid of them.
He tweeted in 2012 about voting machines.
Yeah, being rigged. He thinks the 2016 election is rigged. Remember, he doesn't think that was a fair. Like he said, if you get rid of the 3 million illegal votes, he would have been. Right. Yeah.
And then he had his own commission to find the illegal votes. And they closed down because they couldn't find anything, right? So this is, I mean, how do you argue with somebody like that, right?
It's insane.
He had all the power to supposedly ferret out these illegal votes. He had all the power to do whatever he wanted to justify his claims, And even in that circumstance, he came up short, couldn't come up with it, right? And his people had to close up shop. So how do you reason with that person?
It's unreasonable. Like at the same time, the DOJ was being weaponized by Obama to go after Donald Trump. The FBI, Comey, was making insane public statements about Hillary Clinton that was like, sabotaging her campaign. And it's like, so is he controlling part of it and not the other part, or like what is that? Yeah.
Yeah. No, Comey. This is the case where Comey arguably did cost Hillary Clinton the election in 2016. I mean, arguably.
Like twice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more of an argument there than there is on the 24-hour censorship on Twitter of Hunter Biden's laptop story, I mean, Comey coming out so close to the election and saying, the investigation is reopened in Hillary's emails. Hillary's emails, if people don't remember this, for a few months prior to the election, dominated headlines of every mainstream media organization, whether it be cable news or print or online. It didn't matter. It dominated, right? And the Russia's hack and leak of the DNC fed storylines from the Democratic National Convention all the way through Election Day, dominated headlines, So in terms of how they, the whole point about the Bernie Sanders campaign, and the Democrats working against Sanders trying to undermine his candidacy, which there was some truth to, right? But that was all storyline ripped out of right from WikiLeaks. That was all targeted at the media to make sure they amplified that as much as possible. Again, true, but it was a very successful hack and leak operation. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. And Trump benefited from that.
Yeah.
Trump clearly benefited from that. And yet they never will admit that happened, now.
One of the things that's very frustrating to me is when I talk online, it's actually the most frustrating is the false equivalency between both sides. Like, I acknowledge and I agree that there is an issue with the far left in this country, there's an issue with the far right in this country, but in my mind, the far left, they're like college kids and school administrators. They have no power in Congress, right? Like the far left hates AOC, they hate Bernie Sanders now. Like they have no power in Congress. Whereas like the far right, through the MAGA people, and it's like really sad because I'm the biggest like institution simp ever. Like I think that obviously we need to hold them accountable. We need to do things, but like our institutions are important. We need them. When somebody links me something, like I have to tell them like, okay, hold on. If this came out of a House Republican committee, you have to fact check everything. If Jim Jordan's name is on it, you can't trust anything that's being published here. Like if Gomer or whatever is part of this, like this could be complete and utter bullshit, right? You know, the audacity of doing all of the impeachment research and all of that, and publishing that 300-page whatever, and they don't even recommend, you know, any charges or anything else. Like, what were you guys doing? What happened to? I thought this was a waste of money. No, I thought we complained about that before with all the J6 stuff and all the Russia collusion stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that made its money back, by the way, by taking stuff from Manafort, who Trump pardoned, by the way. But yeah, it's just like
By the way, that's the kicker on the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? Is they've had the laptop for several years now, and they couldn't land an impeachment out of it, right? If this
or charges or anything relating to
Right,
Joe
this-
Biden.
Right. I mean, if this is the story that should have cost Joe Biden the election, right? If this is the holy grail, you know, this great MacGuffin of a character device, plot device in this storyline of the 2020 election, right? Then why didn't it pay off in the end, right? I mean, it didn't. Why did it fail? Why did they fail to deliver anything that would have really been the final blow? But again, you know, this is just it's just an endless cycle of stupidity, you know. And you're absolutely right, though. I mean, I've had that same thought many times, that the crazies are much closer to the center of power on the right now than they are on the left, and that's a big part of the problem. I mean,
Like, how is your biggest fundraiser like Marjorie Taylor Greene? This woman was posting about Hawaii space lasers. Something is not working here.
Yeah, and who posts on her Instagram account that she stands with Alex Jones?
Yeah.
And it was talking about the weather being controlled now to go against, you know, Republicans. I mean, good luck reasoning with that, you know.
Yeah. Well, do you is there, what do you want people to find you or search for your stuff at, or if you could link anything or have people?
I don't know. You can just Google me, you know, Tom Jocelyn. I pop up from time to time. I write at Just Security, where I'm a senior fellow. I do have an X account, but I use it sparingly. I don't particularly like it. I'm not on any other social media. You know, I don't. You know, this is all very much a new thing for me. For coming into your corner of the world, you know, online YouTube. You know, I started watching a lot of YouTube content during the pandemic, and saw a lot of good and bad, right? There's a lot of talented people like you doing these types of, you know, videos and streaming, that kind of thing, and there's also a lot of crap, you know. So you know, it's the good with the bad, but you know, it's something I enjoy watching. So it's my first time doing one of these types of things, though, so it's fun, you know.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
It's fun to chat, and yeah, if anything ever comes up, or if I email you, if you email me or whatever, yeah, we can always chat again. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What a guy. Jesus. Christ. Wait, is Josiah awake or? He might be doing a debate right now. Are you aware of Jill Stein being directly connected to Russia today and even spotted at the 10th anniversary? Yeah, Jill Stein is fucking... Wall's called Elon a dipshit? Wait, like today or in the past he has? What's new in Chrome? Today. Oh, I'm sorry, Wall. I was thinking of Vance, my bad. Okay.
Come on, guys. We've got
Oh, hi, what's up, bucko?
How was your conversation?
It was good. It was a nice little circle jerk.
Was he a lawyer? Because he said he wrote for Just Security, and I think that's like a legal blog. So I assume he's a lawyer. Did he
I don't think so. I
clarify?
think he said he was an economist or something. I don't think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on, buddy.
gotcha.
Wait, have you done your debate yet today?
My debate.
Just kidding. I thought you and Hutch were having a convo with Crystal,
Kyle?
Ball, and Kyle.
Kyle and Crystal. Yeah, that was last week.
Oh, wait, how long ago has it been since I've seen you?
I think we chatted yesterday or the day before. Yeah, it happened on, I think, last Wednesday. It was good. It was good. It was civil. He put it down as a heated debate.
Wait, I saw you yesterday? No, wait, when was I at your house?
You talked to me like 2 days ago
Yeah.
after your conversation with the crazy lady. The
Yeah, okay, never mind. I
leftist
meant when I
Martin
saw you
Turco.
in real life. Fuck you. Okay.
Oh, you saw me in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You
How
saw
was
me,
it?
yeah, you saw me 2 days before the Kyle.
Yeah,
debate.
okay. How did your conversation go? I haven't even watched it yet.
It went well. Again, he marked it as a heated debate, but it was super chill, and they were both pretty reasonable. Kyle got a little. I don't want to say this. Kyle proposed an unorthodox approach to try to getting Joe Manchin in line by President Biden that I think most people would say is either very corrupt or legally dubious, which was threaten to prosecute Joe Manchin's daughter if Manchin didn't comply with Biden's legislative agenda. But that aside, which we talked him down from that, and I think we made the case successfully that even if you endorse such ruthless tactics, and I want Democrats to be pretty ruthless, but even if you think that that's on the table, that's just going to backfire because Merrick Garland would resign, number one. Joe Manchin, number two, would say, fuck you. He'd go public with this. He'd quit the Democratic Party, perhaps become a Republican, which would increase his chances of getting reelected in West Virginia, and then you get nothing accomplished. So even Crystal, I expected Crystal would be the most hostile to our ideas, but she was pretty chill the whole time. So I would say that was mostly a circle jerky conversation, but it was good. It was fun. It was good bridge building.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything particular you want to talk about, or am I allowed to talk?
No, you're allowed to talk.
Okay. Can I read to you for 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Are you listening? Are you ready?
I am. I'm listening.
Okay. Fuck, I didn't. Okay, I'm reading. Ready?
Sure.
I want to write an op-ed for a media website, okay? And I'm reading you what I might send in, okay? That's what this is. Ready?
Okay. Can you wait a minute?
What?
Wait a minute. Can you also send this? I can hear you, but if I can read along at the same time, that'd be better for me. Can you do that, or is it something you have to dictate?
It's something.
Copy paste.
I'll copy paste it when I finish reading it to you, okay?
All right, fine, sure.
Okay. My title is "Let Me Make This Perfectly Clear. I will never vote for Donald Trump." Okay.
Okay.
As you're now aware, Donald Trump is leading in polls across some of the swing states, and the future of the election looks precarious. There are two brief thoughts on where we go from here. One, many people have asked me what I'll do if, as is incredibly likely at this point, Trump tragically wins the election. Will I? Fuck, I can't do this. Never mind.
No, do it.
No, I didn't. I didn't. Fuck, I didn't proofread this enough. Fuck, my bad. Never mind. Okay, this isn't. I'm just gonna read this. Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Fuck. Two brief thoughts on where we go from here. Many people have asked me what I'll do if, as is incredibly likely at this point, Trump tragically wins the nomination. Will I coalesce around the nominee and support my party? They wonder. This is an op-ed from somebody else. Okay. The answer is no. Also, hell no. Also, how dare you even ask me that? I have spent months calling Trump what he is: a con man, a tyrant, a pathological liar, a flamboyant despot, a fraudster, a big government liberal, progressive in a very poorly fitting and unconvincing conservative costume, a Planned Parenthood apologist, an unrepentant philanderer, a crook, a creep, a fascist with a spray tan, a reality TV Mussolini, a Caligula with a bad haircut, etc. How could I possibly vote for a guy who I've just described this way? How could I possibly unite around this man when I've spent months correctly observing the fact that he's a scam artist who lies about everything, including his opposition to illegal immigration? It would be nonsensical. It would negate everything I've said about him and make me as big a fraud as Trump himself. So let me make this clear. I will never vote for Donald Trump, not even if he's running against Hillary Clinton, not even if he pays me $1 million, not even if he puts a gun to my head. I wouldn't expect that to happen until he runs for re-election. I will never vote for Donald Trump. Let the whole country go to the polls and say yes to tyranny. I will take no part in it. I wash my hands of it. I disavow it. I will not be a willing participant in the decay of our republic. Remember, there are no reluctant votes or hesitant votes or compromising votes or votes with asterisks next to them. There are only votes. And if you vote for an authoritarian megalomaniac, Your vote is an affirmative and your vote is as affirmative and enthusiastic as everyone else's. You might as well put on one of those dumb red hats and weep tears of joy while you enter the ballot box like all of the other Trumplings, because your vote counts just the same as theirs. I have found no reason to believe that Trump will be better than Hillary Clinton. They are practically the same, which is why they've been such close friends for so long. They are both reflexive liars. They are both clinical narcissists. They are both power-hungry lunatics. They are both ruthless pragmatists who care only about increasing their own authority, not advancing any idea or ideology. They both adopt the ideology that suits them for the moment, and they drop it just as quickly. In the general election, Hillary will run a little right, now that she's not competing against Karl Marx, and Trump will run even further left. In the White House, they will govern almost exactly the same. Though there are those who think that Trump will, at the very least, nominate conservative justices, but I can't fathom how they've come to that conclusion. Trump will nominate whatever judge can be approved, as will Hillary. Again, neither of them give the slightest crap about conservatism or liberalism. They just want to rule. That's all. The end. Besides, Trump is campaigning as a liberal in a Republican primary. Do you really think he's going to fight to put Antonin Scalia 2.0 on the court? Please. This is the guy who can't stop himself from praising Planned Parenthood. He did it again yesterday, entirely unprompted. He's not a conservative constitutionalist, and he's hardly pretending to be one. If you won't pretend in a GOP primary while trying to win votes in the evangelical South, do you really think he'll pretend when he's sitting in the Oval Office having won the presidency by praising abortionists and calling for universal health care? Stop it. Don't be silly. In any event, even if Trump somehow accidentally nominated an acceptable Supreme Court justice, that wouldn't be enough to override the fact that he's an oppressive dictator intoxicated by the smell of his own fumes. President Barack Obama has expanded executive powers beyond the worst and most feverish nightmares of our founding fathers. Trump or Clinton will complete the process and turn the president into something most closely resembling an Egyptian pharaoh. Trump has already promised to unilaterally censor the press. Will the Supreme Court even matter when King Tut is in charge? I will never vote for Donald Trump. I'll vote third party, or I won't vote at all, or I'll move my family to the rainforest and will subsist on grubs and wild berries for the rest of our days. Any of these options would be preferable to voting for Trump. I will never vote for Trump, period. Yeah, there's a bit more to this, but like, does this sound, what? Do you know who wrote this?
I'm going to guess Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham or somebody who ended up voting for Trump anyway.
Fucking Matt Walsh.
What?
Matt fucking Walsh. I'll send you the article. I only read about half of it. Bro, what the fuck?
Oh, no.
Posted on The Blaze, back when Glenn Beck was more anti-Trump.
It's Matt Walsh versus Matt Walsh, huh?
It's insane, dude, how much these people are just...
They don't care. They so don't, and they're not beholden to this. It's amazing. Honestly, if we had a liberal/progressive media ecosystem comparable to what's on the right, Walsh would be inundated in this shit. Like, this would be common knowledge. And as somebody who is in this space, I had no fucking clue he wrote this. Did you like find this, or someone bring this to your attention?
Shit, I think it Forethought. Fuck, I don't think it was Forethought. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember who sent it to me. Now I feel bad because they're gonna get mad, but somebody sent it to me, yeah.
And it's archived. I assume, did they take it down or something?
I archived it because when I went to look for it, it didn't exist anymore. Yeah. Or I searched for the archive and it was here, yeah. Because it was obviously deleted, but...
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, their shamelessness is their superpower. You know, we talked about this. They have so many institutional advantages that enable Republicans to punch above their weight class anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The Electoral College and gerrymandering and separation of powers, 30 out of 50 state legislatures, a vast disparity in mainstream and alternate media. And then the other thing is they're just not beholden to things that they said, be it 8 years ago or 8 days ago. It just doesn't matter. And I think it takes something that's already inherently difficult for us and makes it almost impossible. Like, it's such a sheer climb. It's like one step forward, two steps back, and they get to play politics like it's a video game on easy mode. And this is just proof of it. Like, if somebody brought this to his attention now, number one, do you think he'd acknowledge it? And number two, if he did acknowledge it, what do you think he'd say?
Reading this article is insane. What the fuck happened to conservatives that they all lost their backbone? It's audience capture 101. This is why I never trust any of these fuckers. I don't know. I'll tweet him and we'll see what he says, because apparently his tweet is still up. So, This was written by Walsh in 2016. If I would post something like this today, it would be like this would be like an unhinged leftist article, right? Like people say you're an unhinged leftist.
Sure.
But I'm sorry. You asked me a question of what would he say today? It would be something like, well, I might have believed that back then, but then I saw how effective Trump did govern, and I saw how woke and crazy the left got, and I realize now that like it's more important to unite to fight the people that are trying to trans all the kids than it is to not vote for Trump, I guess. But
Speaking of Walsh, I sent you a tweet the other day of his coworker Ben Shapiro. Did you get a chance to take a look at that?
which one? Show me.
Where here, I'll send to you again. Well, it's me quote tweeting him, but you should see his original tweet. So, you know, it's in response to Kamala's Twitter page talking about how Trump refers to Democrats as the enemy within and all this shit. And Shapiro responds with, "Well, Joe Biden did an entire speech from Independence Hall labeling his political opponents enemies of the Republic."
Oh, that speech that I've gone over and over again, where Biden, like a dipshit, like Destiny, like a dumbass, he tries to caveat 15 times. Not all Republicans are like this. Not even most of them. He does this over, and it doesn't matter in that speech. They always take like the one or two things. He says all MAGA Republicans, all the Republicans. Yeah, what a bull. Yeah.
And at no point does he even threaten to deploy the military against him, which is what that's the whole point. Trump has repeatedly said over the past week that Democrats are the enemy within. He name drops Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi, and I think even Paul Pelosi too, just as random examples. And you should look at this because it's a stunning example of like true gaslighting. Jake Tapper on CNN has confronted MAGA Republicans about this, Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, and then I think there was, who else did he talk to about this? He talked to somebody else about it. Now I'm blanking on it. And even though Trump is clearly referring to Democrats or his political opponents, they're like, well, I think he was actually talking about like Venezuelan gangs. But at no point has Joe Biden ever threatened to deploy the National Guard and the military against his political opponents, even if you think that some of his rhetoric against MAGA is spicy, which I don't think it is, and I don't think he can defend that proposition particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is frustrating. And I should say, this is still a coin flip election, man. I mean, we talked about it on Sunday, but there's a clear path to a Trump victory, and I don't know.
It's insane. One of the things I wish I would have done at this time, but I got so sidetracked with the J6 video and other things. I really wish that I would have implemented something in my community, some tech thing. Okay, I just had to write it. I had to take a note. I really wish I would have created something in my community. I need other leftist communities though to collaborate with me to track like the percentage of people who could sign up to like vote or whatever, because I think it would be fun, assuming that these people weren't all toxic, fucking degenerate fucking losers. It would be fun to go to like Hassan and Vosh and say, hey, like my community is more committed than your community. Like we're gonna take 5,000 people from each, and we're gonna measure like the percentage that votes, and I bet my community will have the highest percentage of the three, and we could even like bet like cringe shit on it, like whoever loses is to shave their head or something dumb, as a way to like get people to vote and to try to like find ways to verify it in government or state database or something. I feel like an effort like that could be a lot of fun. It would be competitive but
yeah. So I don't follow Hassan particularly closely. My understanding just from my Twitter feed is obviously there's drama going on with him and Twitch, or people associated with him and Twitch. I don't even know where he is at this point in terms of his advocacy. I know he went to the DNC. I didn't see him, but I think he got kicked out or something like that, or left in a huff. Is he even endorsing Vice President Harris? Because I will say, I'm pretty sure Kyle and Crystal are voting Harris. Mm-hmm. I thought, or Hutch was under the impression they were voting Stein, but based on the conversation that we had with Kyle and Crystal, they recognize that Kamala is superior to Trump and Jill Stein's not going to win, and so they seem to be backing Kamala and intend to vote for her. Do we know if Hassan is?
I want to say the last thing I saw was either him being indifferent or saying Kamala might be better, but I don't know if he's ever given like a full or like a full endorsement for Kamala or encouraging his audience to vote for her. Somebody could link me that and prove me wrong. I'm not sure, but
yeah, it is sad that the right ecosystem, they definitely understand electoral power in the way that the left communities don't seem to. There's that. I didn't actually see this myself, the full video, but I saw a screenshot of the video from ContraPoints, is it, where She says that certain people on the left don't want power; they just want to endlessly bitch about it or critique it or something like that.
Yeah.
And
They don't struggle to fix the struggle. They always have to have a struggle, basically. Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge problem. I mean, I think like Kyla, I got in touch with Kyla earlier today about the Las Vegas thing or whatever. She's really excited about that particular canvassing effort. But is that the last one? Is Vegas and Nevada the last one?
I mean, probably, because I think it's. Yeah, because it's like a week before the election, right?
Yeah, we're 2 weeks out. Well, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to be there with a buddy, and I'm probably going to bring a couple of people and go out and door knock. You're going to be there confirmed just Saturday, or
think it's.
or what are your plans?
Let me check. Yeah, I think Saturday I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be good. Get to door knock and do shit there. I know people have asked again, what's the likelihood that Trump does the worst case scenario thing? I am curious, just like where your mindset is with this. If you were to bet that Trump actually tries to do some crazy unhinged shit in his second term versus just, canceling the lawsuits against him, what do you think the probability is? Do you think there's a pretty good chance, I guess is my question, that he just basically uses this as a get out of jail free card and fucks off for most of his presidency?
I think the issue is that the scary thing is that he's so fragile and he's surrounded himself with so many sycophants that I don't know what the extent. Like, I thought about this more yesterday, especially in the context of his relationship with Elon. Like, if Donald Trump was willing to send in a formal request to Twitter to take down that, is it Chrissy Teigen? To take down her tweet, he'd make the same call to Elon, right? And we know that Elon collaborated with Trump before taking down that J.D. Vance article. Like, would Elon say no to Donald Trump or for anything? So that's something I'm really worried about now is Elon, who is, I think, one of the scariest actors in the United States right now. I don't even want to call him like a shadow operator because he's so in the open and so blatant. Like, this is the richest man in the world who now has like a huge pack pulling for an authoritarian candidate. This is like, we're on like the worst path right now, right? You realize that, right? We're like on the worst path, right? The world's richest man is polling for an authoritarian candidate who is controlling one of the largest, news media proliferator, like social media outlets it's just, that's so bad. So if Trump is president and he can exercise control through that, that's a scary thing. Like, I shudder to think of like who would be in Trump's cabinet. Like, holy Christ, who the fuck is the new DOJ head? Like, does Donald Trump get more Supreme Court picks? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's the scary thing, and this is, I tend to be more cynical. So, if anything, if my channel has many flaws, but one of the biggest ones is I too make more of a negative case against Trump than an affirmative case for Kamala, and not because I don't think an affirmative case can be made, but because I just think fear is a sufficient motivator. Just knowing the threat posed by Trump should motivate enough people. And for me, the big one is, they are confident. Lindsey Graham is confident. He said this on Sean Hannity's show, and others have echoed it, that if Trump becomes president and he gets a Republican Senate, they will have 2, perhaps 3 Supreme Court justices, because Alito and Thomas will retire. They haven't come out and said it, but the way that Lindsey Graham was talking about this indicates that they are either going to die or retire. Presumably, they'll do a strategic retirement. Sotomayor is about 70 years old, and she's like a diabetic who has to walk around with a medic at all times. She could tip over any day. And instead of having just a 6-3 conservative supermajority, it would be a
6 Supreme Court justices
MAGA.
by one
MAGA,
by one
MAGA.
authoritarian fascist president. Like,
right.
Imagine like the structure. Just think about like the purpose and the structure of the Supreme Court and the checks and balances of the government. Can you imagine telling the founding fathers? So the Supreme Court, that check and balance on the two. Did you know that 2/3 of the justices came from one singular U.S. president who didn't win the popular vote either time? By the way, like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the thing is, like, a lot of people are saying Kagan and Sotomayor should retire, and I agree. I think they should. Just to, potentially forestall that outcome. But the other scary thing is, at this point, with Biden being a lame duck president, if that were to happen, I mean, I'd like to think that Manchin and Sinema would back, Biden's replacements, because they have actually a pretty good, reliable record on supporting Biden's judges and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But, I wouldn't put it past them to kind of stick it to him one last time. And
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
it's a 50-50 Senate right now, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if one of them backed out, it's game
Right.
over.
No, and you can't rule that out entirely. I mean,
You can't rule it out
Manchin,
because the other political party is backed by the richest man in the world as well. Would you want to like
Right.
how scary? Not to say that they would take bribes or anything, but like, holy Christ, you're in such an uncomfortable area. Yeah, it would be. And then imagine now you're losing one of your liberals, right, on your court, and it's
two
or
of
two,
the three,
yeah.
right? So yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, and the court, and this because we talked about it. I do view the court as kind of the final obstacle. I think Trump and MAGA are the immediate problem, but this court and the way we've conceptualized the Supreme Court, I just think it's unworkable. And the more I read Michael Stokes Paulson and consume more of his videos, I think we seriously have to look at Supreme Court reform, because the way it is now, it's not judicial review, it's judicial supremacy. We have a basically top-down relationship where the Supreme Court gets to issue directives to the president and Congress, and there's really no. I mean, there was a thing I tweeted about the other day. There was a Marquette Law School poll that said 90% of polled respondents support fixed term limits for Supreme Court justices and a strict enforceable code of conduct. That is a staggering figure, 90%. And so, yeah, if Trump is able to even further pack that institute, and here's the other thing too, like we don't seem to like war game the possibility that this Supreme Court would take up any legal challenge to the 2024 election, but why wouldn't there be a Bush v. Gore? I understand that they didn't interfere the last time in 2020, but they've also done things since 2020 that a lot of people didn't expect. The Trump immunity decision. I mean, I think, not to throw you under the bus, but I think even you would admit that you did not predict that accurately, that you thought that this court would be much more rational, and yet they gave the farm away to Trump. So if Trump contests this election, should we just blindly assume that the Supreme Court wouldn't take up any legal challenges and potentially rule in his favor?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, like, it's like that immunity thing too is so crazy in their circumstance, because the court has, you call it judicial supremacy, like the court has in a way like given so much power. It's taken power from the legislature, and in a way it's taken power from the judicial, and it's centered it in the Supreme Court, and then it's granted it through the Supreme Court to the president. Because now here's something you have to, this is what's happened right now, right? If the president of the United States violates a criminal statute passed by the Congress such that he is demanded to appear before, the courts, which would already require somebody in his own executive branch to want to take him to court, right? Because his own DOJ has to go after him, right? The ultimate say on does Donald Trump get prosecuted for a crime is now in the hands of the Supreme Court justices that he appointed.
Right. Yeah, it's a total racket, and you're right. It's a good thing to remember that superficially this is an enhancement to the executive, but the longer game. This is why, again, I view the Supreme Court as the final boss of American democracy, because to your point, there's a leash there, and at the end of that leash is the Supreme Court. So you could easily say that they were actually taking power unto themselves through the executive, and this is just another reason why. I think the founders didn't intend for this to be the case. Like, they clearly intended for all three branches to have some sort of judicial interpretation. And Stokes-Paulson's really radicalizing me on this idea that non-acquiescence, where the president can basically just ignore the court if he thinks the court is wrong, is a perfectly valid legal strategy. He's like, because the alternative is the Supreme Court, as the arbiter of the Constitution, is by definition supreme. It can tell Congress what to do because it can interpret congressional powers, the same thing with the executive. And given that there are no other checks against it, that's a lot of centralized power in these 9 unelected, philosopher kings. And to me, it's more shit added on top of this problem. And even if Kamala wins the presidency, like, it's less likely that we win the Senate. Unless we wildly overperform in the polls, we are very, very, very likely probably going to lose the Senate.
Sure.
And I'm still convinced that, and again, Republican politicians have signaled that they would do this, is if she gets a Supreme Court vacancy 6 months into her presidency, I am not convinced that they will confirm a single judge. I just don't believe it.
Especially because, like, remember, there's always, like, obviously we would give her a Supreme Court justice. Obviously, of course we do that. But it's like, well, but hold on. I mean, like, while it's true, sure, we would. But, like, obviously she stole the election. Like, are you really saying that we should, you know, grant a Supreme Court justice to somebody who's so blatantly engaged in voter fraud, right? Because Donald Trump has already made, right, he's done the equivalent of like the political N-word, right? Which as in the United States is saying like, oh yeah, I would suspend the Constitution because there's voter fraud, obviously, right? Oh, okay, well see, that's like the worst that's basically the worst thing you can say as president, right? Is I would suspend the Constitution. You're putting yourself above the thing that's regulating our entire government. So like suspending the Constitution is way less of a big deal than just not appointing Supreme Court justices or confirming them, right? So
right. Well, not to bust Lactoid's balls, but I do go back to him because I like to pick on this idea. You know, you have people out there who are so enamored to a conservative supermajority on the court. That's all they care about. And so you have people who say court packing or court expansion or court reform. That's the real threat to democracy, not threatening to terminate the Constitution when it's inconvenient. And I should say, Vice President Harris has not formally come out and said that she supports expanding the court. She said 5 years ago she was open to it. Sure. She's changed a lot of positions in the past 5 years. And so I just, the whole thing is about preserving this conservative supermajority on the court. That's all these people give a shit about. They will sacrifice anything and everything along the way just to get Supreme Court decisions they agree with. I don't know, man. It's scary shit. But, hey, we're going to have a chance to make a difference in Nevada this week.
Nevada? Oh, I was thinking in like... Yeah. Honduras or whatever country we go to next. I'm just kidding.
You just moved to Singapore. Are you, after further reflecting on that conversation with what's her face, how do you feel about it now? I know you were kind of disappointed with it.
The one I talked to yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yeah, Batya.
I don't know, man. I feel like I see people in chat saying that and I got an email saying maybe she's fucking Russian. I don't fucking know. That shit is fucking wild. That I couldn't. And like the way that she was talking to me, I didn't know if this was like a Russian psyop, like mommy dummy, like pacification, like, oh, if I'm just like talking nice, like I'm like a sweet, little lady, I could never be mean or propaganda. And I'm like, I'm so mind fucked. I'm like, hold on, we really can't agree on a single basic fact about anything. That's literally impossible. Yeah, I don't know, bro. Holy shit. I don't know for anything. It's all fucked. It's all crazy. The world is crazy right now.
It is. It is. Last question for you. Any ETA on the January 6th video?
No. Maybe I'll ask my duders. Fuck, I feel bad. No, I shouldn't feel bad. Hold on.
Yeah, you're
wait.
them.
Just check on how we looking at for a final ETA. Think it's still possible to release before end of month / on the 1st. I'll let you know when he answers, okay?
Yeah, please do. When are you going to do your next spaces?
I usually do them with Pisco after my Saturday thing, but I'm going out of town in a couple days, so I don't know if I'll be here for the Saturday thing.
Oh my God, you're going out of town? All right, Chad, brace yourselves.
Fuck knows what's happening next? Yeah.
Right.
The thing is Hassan still hasn't gotten banned, and I have to leave. I have to leave. Nothing happens unless I'm not streaming. Yeah, so I have to not stream, and I got to see if that's what happens. It's either going to be that or Israel will get nuked or something, I guess.
You're going to go on a fucking cross-country road trip just to try to make the one seismic event happen.
The one thing, yeah.
Hassan's Twitch ban. What are you prepared to sacrifice? What are you prepared to sacrifice, sir, given the stakes, just in the hopes that it lands, that fate lands on a
Already sacrificed
Hassan
so
ban?
much, okay? What else can you take from me, okay?
Have you heard back from any of these Twitch executives about unbanning you? I saw that some other... Oh, okay.
I don't know if that. I don't want that. That shouldn't really even be part of. I don't think the main conversation. But I think.
Like I memed about it, but it's literally nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's on some sort of like permanent blacklist, like the blackest of blacklists.
Well,
Anybody else?
there's a few people that like on his ticket that he has over there at Twitch. There's an actual note that most people don't have. It's like before you do anything, contact this person. So I mean, that's a very specific thing to have happen for him.
He has a specific case manager.
Well, yeah, like if anyone was going to make the mistake of giving him a second chance, it's like, no, come see me.
God. Oh, shit. Well, Dan, are you going to be out in Nevada?
No.
No, well, so much for that. I guess I'll see you in Miami, though, for the election.
Yep.
All right, guys. You have a good one.
I love you. Be careful, babe.
Love you, too. See ya.
Am I quiet for you?
Yeah, but everybody just is fucking me. So let me see what I have your volume set at.
It could be on my end. Hold on.
I had you at 85. Now you're at 100.
Wait, no. Put me back. I should be here. Put me back to wherever I was, I think.
Nope.
Yeah?
Fuck it. This is good. You might want to be a little lower. But
Okay. All right. I'll put it a little lower then. Okay. Twitch is fucked, I think. It's the stuff today has been crazy.
Why? What's happened today?
It's probably been the craziest day as far as meetings and everything else that I've done. The stuff that is coming down the pipeline for these guys is like, I don't think they understand it. I think that they're still there in like a meeting room, like strategizing, like, oh yeah. I'm, pretty sure, I don't think Dan Clancy is going to last another week. Never mind 6 months.
Damn.
Have you like seen all of the other stuff about what's going on? Here's the one problem though. The thing that like may be kind of shitty. I've talked with a few people about this, even like internal Twitch employees, but most recently someone that used to be there. They're thinking that this might just literally be the end of Twitch. Amazon might just pull the plug completely. So then
I mean, like,
so
so even
on
if
YouTube.
Amazon might pull the plug, but even if they did, somebody would go for acquisition or something, right? I feel like somebody would try to do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I'm hearing.
Do you know what Eddie's net worth is? The Australian guy that owns Kick?
Probably no, I don't. Is the answer to that question?
Okay.
Do you know?
No, I don't. Eddie Kick, billionaire.
I don't. He's got some good money. I mean, if like people like X and Train and all that being worth hundreds of millions, he should, I assume, be.
It says 1.3 billion on Google. I was just curious. I was curious if it was like 50 billion or if it was like 1 billion or whatever. It'd just be funny for Kick acquiring Twitch would just be like the ultimate victory dance that they could do. Rumble would probably try to do something too though, but I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, Rumble only has stock to offer. Is the problem, right? Like they have. I don't think Rumble has actual real acquisition ability to do stuff like this.
Well, I'm sure they
Twitch,
try to raise money or investment or something for it, right?
You know where it should go? Probably to YouTube. That would be the natural home of it.
Well, but I mean, from a free market bullshit, right? That'd probably not be healthy, right?
I mean, there's enough streaming sites right now, I think, and YouTube
Are there?
doesn't even really.
There's like 1.5 or 2 maybe, right? It's like Twitch and YouTube are like the big boy competitors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I will say, can I do like a little call to action? Would you be okay with that? Just, I know you have your own shit, but
Go for it. Call to action.
Listen, for you guys in the United States, okay? If you're in the U.S., this is an important thing to do. I said this before, and I want you guys to just do this again. It actually only takes 5 minutes of your time, and you can do it now if you're on the West Coast, which is crazy. If you're on the East Coast, it's too late. The West Coast, you can do it. Google your zip code, okay? So your zip code might be 90210, okay? And then representative house, okay? That's what I want you guys to do. And I want you to actually call the number and talk to them. It doesn't matter if you get okay, I'll put it this way. There's about a 20% chance that you'll actually get a hold of the actual congressman. I shit you not. The actual dude, like the major. What's her name? MTG? Like, you'll actually get her. There's a 20% chance. The other 80% chance of the time, you're just going to get a staffer. Talk to them and tell them what happened at Twitch. That they silently banned Israel for a year, and then they lied about it, and they're trying to get out of it, and you're upset about that this happened, and that isn't that illegal because of anti-BDS laws and everything else. I'm not joking. Like, everyone here, like, doing emotes and shit like that, like, literally, just do this for yourself. If you guys go, if even 1/10 of you guys did it and called, this would be even more impactful, because I'm telling you, when these people get messages about from their constituents about the fact that, hey, Twitch banned all of Israel for a year, and then they lied about it, and then they tried to cover it up by deleting the threads and everything else. I'm going to tell you what I said last night. This is a good thing. Imagine Hassan getting questioned in a congressional hearing Like,
It'd be even
the
worse
name
than
of
that conversation
what's
with
the guy?
Jank.
What's the name of the guy with one eye?
Oh my God, Crenshaw. Do you have
Imagine
any idea
Dan
how
Crenshaw
fucking cinematic that would be?
questioning Hassan, but it will only happen, you guys. It will only happen if you actually call your House of Representatives. Just Google your zip code, House of Representative, do it, and just even if you talk to some dipshit, it doesn't matter. It goes straight to them. Twitch banned. Do you know about this? Twitch banned Israel for a year. For a year, silently. They didn't tell anyone. And then when we discovered it, they tried to cover it up and hide the evidence. That's it. That's my call to thing of what I want you guys to do. Please actually do it. Don't just say you're going to do it. Actually do it. And that's all relatively true. I mean, 100% true, actually. I don't know. Their statement was fucking unbelievable. Did you ever go through it? How fucked it was?
How like the excuse they gave for what happened.
It was so unreal. Yeah.
It would work that way with a smaller company if it was for like 2 days. But the fact that
Yeah.
it carried on for a year, so many people brought it to their attention. Support was literally responding to tickets. If this was the case, they would have to admit to a staggering array of inadequacies that they didn't notice somehow, that a whole region
A
couldn't
man
sign up
from
for
Pike
accounts,
County
that
faces
they
charges
weren't
for
paying
his
attention to
alleged
hashtags
role
on
in the
Twitter, despite the
attack
fact
on
that we've seen them pay attention to some,
Investigators
that they were
Greenstown
ignoring
grabbed her by
content
the
creators
neck
from a
to
certain
the
region,
ground
that they
within the
had
Capitol,
pushed a
and
major change like
song
that
around
without
the
anybody
Georgia
reviewing it or
Washington
understanding it or knowing what was happening.
while
It would
He
be
faces
so...
civil
There would
order
be so
and
many
assault
mistakes
charges.
made for that to be the case. Yeah.
There's no excuse, I think. So the part about it, Dan Clancy absolutely has to step down. There's no way around it. But I think everything gets solved when he steps down, because the new CEO, you don't have, like I thought about before, like, do you need to be like, okay, I need Dan Clancy to step down. You have to overhaul trust and safety. There needs to be oversight. I don't think you need to do any of that. I think if you just get rid of Dan Clancy, what happens is that the new CEO comes in here and the new CEO is like, hey, what happened to that last guy that was in this job? Oh, okay. All right. Listen, I'm gonna not do what that guy was doing. So you guys need to fuck off. I'm gonna get new people here. Like that basically, I think that's enough. You get rid of Dan Clancy and someone else will come in there and solve the problems. What I've heard from everyone, from every single Twitch employee, is that Dan Clancy is really nice, but he's fucking dumb and he just wants to please everyone. That's it. Like, that is the universal thing I have heard from people, is that he's just kind of stupid and that he tries to be nice and please everyone. That's it. Sorry, you're fucking incompetent. You left all of Israel banned for a year. Also, do you know what else I heard, which is even more fucked up? Is that, you know how they like to say, oh, we banned Israel and Palestine? I'm hearing that people in Palestine, Gaza, and the West Bank were actually still able to connect because both of them didn't use quote-unquote Palestinian IP addresses. They were using internet service based out of Lebanon and out of fucking Egypt.
Oh, or that, sure.
So it was only Israel that was actually affected by this. I mean, and it makes sense. I don't know if, like, is there like Palestine IP or something? PalestineCafe.com?
There is,
like,
I think there is a country code and there's a geo tag for Palestinian IPs. But I've heard they can connect through like internet coming through the West Bank or whatever as well. I don't know how true that is. I didn't test it, but yeah. Yeah, pretty. It's pretty crazy. I will say that the reason why I don't like, well, no, forget that. I mean, Dan Clancy stepping down is probably good, but I think it's possible that if you have a CEO that's a fall guy, you can get away with not making a lot of corporate changes. Basically, instead of having a true corporate change in culture, they would just try to like limit the amount of dumb shit that people are doing. Because really, the big deal here, the corporate culture being this anti-Semitic is problematic, but it's the fact that they were able to do so much dumb shit. That geo-ban is just dumb shit. Allowing content creators to say shit like this is dumb shit. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think this went into place? Like, especially, like, how do you think that person got hired who last job was whatever?
I don't know enough about the background of the hiring, so I can't even, I don't even know how uncommon the statements are right now. I have no idea, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The geo-ban is not a result of anti-Semitism. I mean, like, have they ever banned another region ever because they're worried about gore? Like, has that ever happened ever on Twitch's history?
No, not as far as I know. They've never banned another country, right? Like the Ukraine, Russia, no. Like Yemen, etc. Like no.
Well,
Sorry, I'm just typing at the same time. It's crazy. I don't know how this could have happened. The combination of all these things is fucking unbelievable. Like, even one of these things is kind of wild. Like, if it was just moderation decisions, whatever, um, you know, that would almost be okay. But it's not the moderation things. It's banning all of Israel. It's deleting the evidence that you were banning Israel. It's suppressing all of those people in the place. It's putting in super prominent anti-Zionist people into positions where they dictate what the policy of what word's okay. Like, do you know that Hassan's chat since October 7th has said the word Zionist 43,000 times?
that whose? Oh, Hassan's
Hassan's
chat. Oh, that's not
Yeah.
surprising at all. Yeah.
Yeah, 43,000 times. You know, it's because the people that, like these people that are coming in and Twitch and safety, they decide, they make rules like, hey, saying Zionist is okay. Zionist pig dog, that's fine. You can say Zionist pig dog. Zionist pig dog is fine. That's what they say. But of course, can you say that about anyone else? Fuck no, right? It's Twitch sanctioned anti-Semitism.
Yep. It's fucking insane. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, the people who touched anything to do or knew anything about this IP ban,
It'd be nice if I knew somebody in Twitch, although I don't know how few people have access in because it would have to be somebody from Trust and Safety that can review that Jira ticket. I wonder what the comments were on the ticket.
I don't know. Like, the incompetence is unbelievable. Absolutely. And your conspiracy theory also, by the way, I believe it. Unironically, I actually believe it now. You know why I believe it?
Wait, which conspiracy theory?
That the reason that they are keeping you banned is because then the Israel ban would have been exposed right away.
Oh. I don't know
And you know
about
what's
that, but
so-
that would
you
be
know-
funny. That would be pretty
Do
crazy
you know what's
to
so
do.
fucked up, by the way, also?
What?
Why would they, when they allow Ukraine and Russia and Yemen and all these other people to create an account, okay, and
Mhm.
stream whatever the fuck they want, why would they care all of a sudden about, on the global day of jihad, why would they care about that? Is it because Jews are getting attacked? And that's not, we don't want to have that narrative? Only Arabs get attacked and not fucking Jews? Like, I don't understand. They have not done this for anyone, ever. Except for the one day where there might be attacks against fucking Jews. Like, am I schizo? Explain it to
I
me.
mean, Global Day of Jihad could also mean attacks against Jews in America as well,
Against
right?
Jews, yeah, against Jews.
In
Yes,
America.
against Jews.
But I'm saying it wouldn't prevent somebody from America from.
Oh, you're saying like the ban in Israel.
The ban doesn't, and the ban doesn't make sense either. Because why didn't they just ban the IPs as well? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's just.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do they think fucking terrorists are bringing their MacBooks out in the field with them and like, hey, dude,
Yeah.
let's shoot this fucking execution video. Hold on, let me open up my MacBook.
And it's
lid
like, yeah,
use the fucking
ISIS just
camera.
like spent like $10,000 and got an editor to stage this execution. Oh fuck, but we don't know what a VPN is, and they blocked our ability to sign up on an Israeli IP. Guess we're fucked. Like, it's just so stupid. It's so dumb. Yeah, yeah, pretty dumb.
It's like I think there's like this difference between pretty dumb to but so I always default to like, what's the most likely explanation? They're fucking stupid. But like an organization like this, I don't think they can be that stupid to like miss that they blocked Israel all year. I feel like people would have told them that in analytics. There's got to be emails from marketing like, hey guys, we have some Israeli advertisers, but their volume's down. That has to be there. They're just lying.
Wait, real
How do
quick.
you- Yeah.
Wouldn't this have been exposed sooner if it was a whole year? Dan knows people in Israel, right? That's kind of the weirdest part, is that it was exposed earlier. Twitch just like ignored it completely. There were
And
hashtags
swept
on
it and
Twitter.
swept it under the rug.
Yeah,
Yep.
there were hashtags on Twitter. People sent in support emails, and support responded and said, sorry, you're ineligible to create an account. And they, yeah, it's just not, they knew, yeah.
They literally swept it under the rug over and over and over again. And you know the it's just, I don't Yeah, what I want you to explain to me, tell me how the anti-Zionist or whatever person, and she may not even be anti-Semitic. I mean, I think she probably is, but that's my opinion.
Mhm.
Tell me how that, like, tell me how you decide to hire that person. Like, let's say George Santos is found innocent of his crimes. What company is like, yo, let me hire George Santos? Who does that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty fucked. Pretty weird.
That is unbelievably insane. And you know that went through two people. Dan Clancy directly approved that hire, by the way.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know what her statements were exactly, or yeah, so it's hard for me to say.
No, but don't forget it. It doesn't matter about the statements. It doesn't matter how anti-Semitic or anti-Zionist or whatever she was. Why would you hire someone that has the fucking reputation and baggage of George Santos? I just said George Santos was found innocent. He actually didn't lie about anything. Would you hire him?
I mean, probably not.
No. No. What the fuck? And they hire the person, and this is the person like in charge of deciding what gets said and what isn't get said, as far as I know, on the platform. That's crazy. Chat, that's crazy. Chat.
Pretty fucked. Pretty wacky. Yep. All right. Anything else, or I got other articles I'm covering as well. A lot of memes on the horizon today.
Oh yes, one last thing. Sorry. So there's a pretty big meeting happening tomorrow, and I need, if you have specific evidence. Let me use one Discord channel. Oh, hold on, real quick. In Destiny's Discord, there is a channel. What's a channel that's barely used? 1 second. Hold on. Just give me a second. I promise I'll be done. I think I already know the answer to this. All right. There is a channel in Destiny's Discord called Sports. Okay? And for now, we are going to use the Sports channel for another purpose. I need every piece of evidence that you guys have. Do not meme or I'll ban you from the Discord. Anyone who memes in that Discord, I will ban you. Every piece of evidence that you guys have of Twitch knowing about, so a user emailing in, hey, I can't connect, I'm in Israel. Every single copy of an email like that, and then Twitch responding. So a user voice getting deleted, a Reddit thread getting deleted, a person on Twitter asking for support from Twitch. This is the main thing I need for tomorrow, okay? Please, guys, help me get this, okay? I just need evidence of people that wanted to create accounts and contacted Twitch. And Twitch, if you're Israeli and you have an email, you can put it in there, okay? All of this stuff will be super, super helpful. That's it. I'll let you do your thing. Thank you.
All right. Love you. Be careful.
Yep. Bye.
Jeez. Is Dana over-exaggerating when he says Twitch is over? I feel like he is, but I also would have said that there probably won't be a single person banned from this. I am shocked that that panel got nuked from orbit. 30-day bans right before the election. That's pretty crazy. So who knows? Who the fuck knows? $20. At Destiny, do you think I can leverage my veteran status to get a better position for a complaint if I calling the House of Representatives in California and call out Hassan and Frogan? Who knows? Maybe. What is this?
I will never have any fucking pity for any fucking soldiers. U.S. military? Who fucking who? I hope you get PT.
Dude, I swear to God, maybe this is a coincidence. Every single clip I've ever seen is when she's eating food.
Okay.
Like it's got to be the food at some point. That's the problem. Like I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. You can, and it's not even offensive either. You can literally look at her top 10 clips. I swear to God, you can probably 6 or 7 of those just eating food.
I do the ones I do.
Oh, hi. Hey, what's up?
Hello, hi.
Hi.
You have a minute.
A quick one. A lot of stuff going on today. Oh, you wanted me to stop
I
calling it
can
a
go-
civil
go-
war in the Donbass. That's fair. I shouldn't. I should just say military invasion, basically from Russia. That is true.
Damn, why do you agree so fast? I was supposed to convince you.
No, you don't have to convince me. I mean, that's just the talking point is they call it a civil war, but I mean, in reality, there were Russian. It was all
Yeah.
Russian instigated. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just really kind of like didn't want it to be that to call you out on that because you are already doing a good job of making points about Ukraine and stuff like that. But many people like in Ukraine specifically who watch Lonerbox in particular were a bit like upset that he continues to call it civil war. And I heard you as well, because Trumpists now, MAGA people, are always saying like there was no wars under Trump, right?
Yeah.
And they bring up that, and you bring up Ukraine correctly, obviously, but yeah, it's just you can I guess say it was kind of a civil war, like for like a month essentially, because in the first few months after they annexed and occupied Crimea, they started transferring weapons, artillery, tanks, and things like that through Crimea to Donbass and give them to separatist groups. So the groups that they propped up and they were led by Russian citizens and Russian officers of the military and the FSB as well. So people like Girkin, for example, they are Russian citizens who were like leading the Donbass separatist movement.
Yeah, but you have to be careful.
It wasn't really authentic.
You can't call it a civil war because that's the propaganda talking point. Because if it's a civil war, then Ukraine is just killing its own citizens because they just want like freedom and prosperity,
Yeah,
and then Russia had to invade to protect the
yeah.
people that were being genocided by Zelensky. Yeah, that's the propaganda talking point.
Yes. And never mind the fact that it only lasted, they tried to do it with just separatist groups, because for them it was much more convenient to take Donbass just by using local forces. But our people managed to push them out, and basically we almost reached our border. So we almost retook everything that separatist groups took, and they saw it, and they then employed 12,000 Russian armed forces there. So 40,000 separatist groups, people, and also 12,000 Russian armed forces people. So you really, at that point, you really can't call it civil war, even if you try very hard to, because there are actual like troops of Russia there.
Yeah.
And also just something for you to know, maybe if you're interested at some point, is that they do it all the time. So they said that it was civil war in Moldova, for example, in Abkhazia, Ossetia, which is
Georgia,
in Georgia.
Yeah.
They did for example, Chechnya is within Russia, so it's not like a separate country, but they did the civil war vibe even there.
Yeah.
So they always use this. It's a hybrid warfare tactic, but in Ukraine it just really didn't work for them because it was so unsuccessful. So they were kind of forced to full scale admit that they are employing troops there. At first they really didn't want to do it. So yeah, so I would probably appreciate it if you just said war in Donbass, for example, didn't say like civil war. That would be a little bit nicer, I suppose.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, how's your crusade?
It's going. It's crusading.
It's crusading. Okay, I believe in you. Okay, it's a couple weeks, before the election. Right?
Yeah, like 2 weeks. Yeah, pretty crazy, but yeah.
Just something funny for you before I go. I just talked with with the soldier dudes from 33rd Brigade, and they actually asked me, they're like, so what's up? Like, who's going to win? And I'm like, well, I obviously can't tell, right? It's a 50-50 sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, yes. And what do we supposed to do though? And I'm like, well, you just wait until November and just try not to die. And then we shall see
What's
what
happening.
will happen with you. Yeah, it's just kind of weird to talk about it that way. That people are like, well, we're supposed to wait until American elections to find out just how fucked we are. Is it like status quo with Kamala, or is it like something much worse with Trump? Fuck knows what. We actually filmed Ukrainians React with Dylan Burns in Kyiv, which I participated in, and he posted, I think, part of it already on YouTube. So if anyone wants to check out Dylan's, channel and see it, it's Ukrainians reacting to media people, American MAGA people, people like that, politicians, Trump ones, people like that.
Nice. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't fun though. There is no Hassan there.
Yeah.
Just a warning.
No drama.
But
no
MAGA
fun.
people are even worse, okay? So I'm not like, no, not worse actually. I think I'm more angry when I hear leftoids and Hassan, but it's more depressing to hear people like Timpu and MAGA people. It just makes me more upset, It just ruins my vibe. It doesn't make me angry, it just makes me sad.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyhow, not gonna waste any more of your time. Appreciate you. I was supposed to have a little debate with you. Didn't work out. Fuck. But anyhow,
Yeah, you're good.
love you. Bye
Love
bye.
you too. Be careful. Stay safe. I don't know why I say civil war. I think I've just gotten so used to saying it. It was a war instigated essentially in the Donbass by Russia, instigated and backed up by them in order to maintain the fighting in that territory. I don't know why I call it civil war sometimes, but listen, I'm not one to call out people on whatever fashion bullshit, do what you want, but I will just say, whatever combination of facial hair and hair this is this like a Photoshop or is this like actually, whatever this is not it. Somehow, like a 9 out of 10 man has turned his face into like a fucking Dumb and Dumber. I don't know what this is. Don't do it. My goodness. Okay, so I'm running through all these clips I've got.
Effort into fucking who invest all of their time and effort into fucking DEI initiatives in video games or whatever are now making fucking hit pieces, and now I have to take that shit seriously? Like, get the fuck out of here. Why am I supposed?
He's so mad because remember, the thing is here, like this is the thing that's triggering Hassan the most, okay? Remember this. Don't ever forget this. The thing that's triggering Hassan the most about all of this is that he might have to actually respond to something of substance. That's the biggest issue. He's used to being able to never having to respond. He doesn't have to respond to anything. He's above it. He doesn't have to. He just needs to be like a 15-year-old and he's good. That's it. But the fact that he might actually have to say something of substance, oof, it's like super, 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 super difficult for him. Has he been forced to apologize for anything since the 9/11 stuff? I don't think so. And that was one of the most painful,
video games
that was one of the most painful conversations I think Hassan has ever had to have. Watching him sit there being chastised by his fucking uncle, my God, that was fucking hilarious. Holy shit. As soon as he typed this out, I heard this in Hassan's voice. Oh my God, what the fuck? People should be aware that Hassan operates in a very specific blah, blah, blah. And then Nicholas Diorio responds, every single person who's ever had drama with Hassan has gotten the, isn't this the guy that ... Holy shit, that's true. Holy shit, that's true. Isn't this the guy that... Oh, man.
Hello?
Fuck, what's up?
Oh, if I catch it at a better time, I come back in a little bit.
Do you want to come back in like 1 hour?
I'll try.
Okay. Or wait.
Please.
Well, fuck. What is... Oh, fuck. Oh, good luck.
Air right now. Pokemon and air right now. Pokemon and Valkyrie will stream with Bernie Sanders on Twitch tonight. Yet I'm not punching the air right now. Let's be real, okay? I am not. I'm excited that they're doing that though. It's good. It's good to do that. All right. Air right.
Rip. Hasanabi. My best friend's boyfriend is a D fan. He was alright at first, but as he became more comfortable, he began showing his true beliefs and colors. She got too fed up, so she broke up with him. I stand with her, but I also know he is only going to fall more into the hole, and it does make me unironically sad. Okay.
Does make me unironically sad. Yeah. Wasn't it Creep towards Cutie Cinderella? Way worse than that. Creep doesn't begin to explain it. I know we moved on, but the most insane thing to me is how people ever thought.
Okay, 6250. 9/11 baking stream with Raph and Capri. If we get to this goal by 9/11, Capri, Raph, and I will make the Twin Towers out of a stacked cake, and we'll make an airplane, and we'll recreate 9/11. Okay, 6250. 9/11 baking stream with Raph and Capri. If we get to this goal by 9/11.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
What is this? Twitch apologized after some users in Israel and Gaza barred from making accounts. A Twitch spokesperson said that the platform disabled some signups in Israel and Palestinian territories after October 7th, 2023, in a bid to stop the spread of violent imagery. Kelsey Baker. Don't know anything about that person. Twitch, the popular online streaming service, apologized Monday after the company was accused of disabling signups for the platform from some users in Israel and Palestinian territories since October 7th, 2023. Post on X, Twitch support acknowledged that accounts requiring verification. A Twitch spokesperson told the Post on Tuesday that the suspension mechanism was meant to be temporary, but was mistakenly extended until we were made aware of the error this week. What do you mean, mistakenly extended? What does that verbiage even mean? The company said that users in Israel and Gaza can now create and verify new accounts. Rod said, what? Slasher? It looks like they banned everything. It just looks like they banned everything because they were afraid of graphic images and they probably just didn't want to deal with this stuff, said Rod Brislow, a gaming and internet culture expert. But they didn't ban everything. They just banned new signups. And this is such a blasé statement. Like, oh, they probably just geo-banned it because they just didn't want to deal with it. This is their job. What are you talking about? It's one of the largest streaming websites in the world. What? Okay. You were in Israeli mainstream news last night on a show called Con 11. The host even said he was a fan of yours. Based. Okay. My Mossad paychecks are coming in. They could have quote mined him to be fair. Mainstream media generally won't quote mine you like that. This piece isn't about him, so I don't know if they would send a fact check, but generally if you're doing a quote for the New York Times or WAPO, they're not going to like quote mine you and like because it's just bad. They, at least in my personal experience, don't generally do that for these. Twitch saw a significant round of layoffs earlier this year, with 500 employees, or roughly 35% of which staff impacted, which Brislow said may have hindered the platform's moderation efforts. Do we even